All right, so LeetCode, it's everywhere you look, especially if you're like getting ready for, those tough technical interviews. But is it really like the key to success in real world coding? That's kind of the big question. We're going to dig into an Algo Academy blog post that really goes deep on this whole debate.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It makes you really think about, why are we using the tools we're using as developers? Are we just following the hype, or is this the right tool for the right job? That's what we're going to try to figure out today.
So let's break it down, like what exactly is LeetCode and why is it so popular, especially for those like aiming for those big tech jobs?
So basically, LeetCode is a platform with a ton of coding challenges,
Mm.
mostly focused on algorithms and data structures.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's super popular because it kind of mirrors the questions you might get asked during technical interviews, like especially those big tech companies.
So it's like a boot camp for your coding skills,
Yeah,
specifically for acing those interviews.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. And like any boot camp, it has its good and bad sides, right? Let's start with the good stuff. LeetCode is really good at making you better at algorithmic thinking and problem solving. The challenges they give you, they're designed to make you think outside the box. You know, go beyond just textbook solutions.
Yeah, that makes sense. I bet that kind of practice would be super helpful for someone facing a whiteboard coding challenge during an interview. You'd be way more comfortable thinking on the spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just being familiar with those kinds of questions and the time pressure makes a huge difference. And don't forget the variety of problems LeetCode throws at you. You'll deal with arrays, strings, linked lists, trees, graphs, you name it. It's a real workout for your coding muscles.
So it's not just about solving problems, it's about building a broad skill set that can handle anything.
Right on. And here's another thing people don't always think about. LeetCode forces you to be efficient. You're not just trying to find a solution that works. You want a solution that's elegant and fast and uses as little memory as possible. That's super important for any developer, no matter what you're working on.
Yeah, that's a great point. Writing code that's not just functional but also performs well, which matters a lot in the real world where every millisecond counts. But now I'm curious. The Algo Academy article seemed to say that while LeetCode is good, it's not a magic solution. What are some of the downsides to only using LeetCode to learn how to code?
You're right. LeetCode is great for some things, but it doesn't show the whole picture of real-world software development. One of the big things the article mentions is that LeetCode problems are super well defined. They don't really capture how messy and unpredictable real projects can be.
So it's like the difference between practicing scales on a piano and composing a symphony?
Exactly. You need more than just technical skills to create something really complex and beautiful. In real-world projects, you rarely get a perfectly defined problem. Requirements are often unclear. Stakeholders have different priorities, and the scope of the project can change at any time.
That sounds like a whole different beast. So while LeetCode gets you ready for the technical stuff, it doesn't necessarily teach you how to deal with the chaos of a real project.
Exactly. Another thing the article talks about is that LeetCode is really focused on algorithms.
Mm.
And while algorithms are important, it can sometimes mean you miss other important parts of software development. It's like focusing on grammar, but forgetting about how to tell a good story. You need both.
So it's about finding the right balance. Strong algorithms, but also understanding how software is built and maintained in the real world.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another potential trap with LeetCode. It's easy to just memorize solutions without actually getting the concepts.
So you might be able to solve a specific LeetCode problem, but get stuck if you see a similar problem in a real project.
Exactly. It's like learning a recipe without knowing why certain ingredients work together. If you have to improvise, you'll be lost. Really understanding why the code works is more important than just knowing how to write it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not just about writing code. It's about really understanding the ideas behind it
Yeah.
and being able to adapt. So the article also talked about how LeetCode doesn't really cover all those important software engineering practices, the stuff that's super important when you're working on a team in the real world.
Yeah, that's a big one. LeetCode is great for algorithms, but it doesn't really teach you about things like version control, code reviews, documentation, or how to collaborate. And those things are crucial in a professional environment.
It's like having a toolbox full of screwdrivers, but you need a hammer, a wrench, a whole set of tools.
Exactly. Those software engineering practices are the tools that let you work effectively as part of a team. Manage those big projects and make sure your code is easy to maintain and can grow as needed.
And those are skills you probably won't learn from just doing isolated coding challenges, no matter how hard they are.
You got it. And another thing the article mentions is that even though LeetCode supports a bunch of languages, its tech scope is still kind of limited. You won't necessarily be exposed to all the different frameworks, libraries, and tools that developers use every day in different areas of tech.
So you might be amazing at algorithms, but if you don't know the specific tools and technologies used in a certain company or industry, you'll still have a lot to learn.
Exactly. So to bridge that gap between LeetCode and the real world, the Algo Academy article suggests taking a more well-rounded approach to learning how to code.
And that's where I wanted to dig a bit deeper. They talk about Algo Academy as a platform that tries to address some of LeetCode's shortcomings. Can you tell us more about it?
Sure, Algo Academy takes a more comprehensive approach to teaching you how to code. It's kind of like a companion to LeetCode. They still have coding challenges, but they also include things that are more like what you'd see in real-world development.
So what are some of the things Algo Academy does differently?
Well, one big difference is their interactive coding tutorials.
Yeah.
They don't just give you challenges, they actually walk you through the concepts step by step and help you really understand the fundamentals.
So it's not just throwing you in the deep end and saying, figure it out. It's more like giving you some support and guidance to help you build confidence and mastery.
Exactly. They also have this really cool feature with AI-powered assistance. Basically, as you're working on the tutorials or challenges, you get personalized feedback and hints from an AI. It's like having a virtual coding mentor right there with you.
That sounds super helpful, especially if you're learning on your own and don't have a teacher or someone to ask for help.
For sure. And unlike LeetCode, which is all about algorithms,
Yeah.
Algo Academy has a much wider range of topics. They cover algorithms, but also things like best practices for software engineering, system design principles, and they even have these project simulations where you can experience what it's like to work on a real project with a team.
So it's about giving you a bigger picture and helping you learn a more diverse set of skills that go beyond just algorithms.
Exactly. And the article really emphasizes that it's important to bring those real-world elements into your learning, even when you're working on LeetCode-style problems.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having a mindset that sets you up for success, not just in interviews, but in your whole career as a developer.
That's really interesting. Can you talk more about that? Like, how can someone make their LeetCode practice more like what they'll actually be doing as a developer?
Well, one of the first things the article recommends is using version control right from the start. Even for small coding challenges, get in the habit of using Git, creating branches, making pull requests, and even dealing with merge conflicts.
So building those good habits early on instead of waiting until you're working on a huge project with a bunch of other developers.
Right. And along with version control documentation is really important too. Don't just write the code. Write clear and concise documentation to go with it. Think about things like comments in your code descriptions
Mm-hmm.
for your functions and readme files that explain what your code does and how it works.
So it's about writing code that other people can understand and maybe even change, not just a solution that exists on its own.
Definitely. And we can't forget about testing.
Yeah. Testing, everyone knows it's important, but it's easy to forget about it when you're just trying to get your code to work.
True. But the article says it's important to make testing a habit from the beginning. Even for practice problems, write unit tests for your code. It helps you make sure your code is doing what it should, and it also helps you get in the mindset of testing as part of the development process.
So it's not just about getting the code to run without errors. It's about making sure it's reliable and does what it's supposed to do in different situations.
Exactly. And here's something that might sound a little weird. Practice doing code reviews.
Now that's interesting. Writing code makes sense, but why would reviewing other people's code be helpful at this stage?
It helps you develop your critical thinking skills and learn how to look at code from different angles. LeetCode and GitHub are great places for this. Look at how other people solve the same problem. Give them feedback and learn from their different approaches.
So it's not just about seeing how they did it, it's about understanding their thinking and their coding style, and maybe even finding ways to make it better.
You got it.
Yeah.
And one last thing, don't underestimate the power of refactoring.
Can you explain what refactoring is and why it's important for those who might not know?
Refactoring is basically going back to your code after you've solved the problem
Mm-hmm.
and making it cleaner and more efficient without changing what it does. It's like organizing a messy room. Everything is still there, but it's easier to find what you need.
So you're not changing the functionality of the code, just making it better.
Right. And that's really important in real-world projects where code can get really big and complicated.
Yeah, that makes sense. So by doing all these things while you're practicing on LeetCode, you're not just solving random problems, you're building skills and habits that will help you throughout your coding journey. You're connecting the dots between theory and practice.
Exactly.
So it sounds like the answer to that question we started with, you know, does LeetCode really prepare you for real-world coding? It's not a simple yes or no, huh? It's more about using the right tools in the right way and understanding what they're good at and what they're not so good at.
Yeah, you nailed it. LeetCode can be really helpful, especially for getting those algorithm and data structure skills sharp and getting used to those interview challenges.
Yeah.
But it's not the only thing you need to be a successful developer.
It's like that saying, right? If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. You wouldn't use a hammer to sew a button or paint a picture.
Exactly. You need a whole toolbox full of different tools to handle all the different challenges you'll face when you're building software. And that includes not just technical stuff, but also those soft skills, you
Mm.
know, like communication and teamwork and problem solving. Those are super important when you're working with other people.
And that's where things like Algo Academy come in. They give you that broader perspective and help you develop a wider range of skills so you're not just ready for interviews, but for a whole career in software development.
For sure. It's about being prepared for the long haul. And that means you need to keep learning, keep adapting, and keep expanding your horizons.
So if we could boil this whole conversation down to a few key takeaways for our listeners, what would you say are the most important things to remember?
First off, remember that LeetCode is just a tool. It has its uses, but it also has its limits. Use it to practice algorithms and problem solving, but don't make it your whole world.
Don't get so focused on LeetCode that you forget about all those other important skills and experiences you need for real-world development.
Right. Second thing, find ways to learn about the bigger picture of software development. Look for resources and experiences that teach you about things like system design, software engineering best practices, and working on real projects.
And don't be afraid to try new things. Experiment with different technologies, contribute to open source projects, build something on your own.
Those experiences will be super valuable as you move forward in your career. And lastly, remember that learning never stops. The tech world is always changing, so stay curious, stay adaptable, and never stop learning. Keep up with the latest trends, be open to new ideas, and always challenge yourself to grow.
That's awesome advice. I think this has been a really great deep dive into LeetCode and how it fits into the bigger world of software development. We've talked about its strengths, its weaknesses, and most importantly, how to use it effectively as part of a well-rounded learning plan.
It's been great talking about this with you.
And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and interesting. If you have any thoughts or experiences or questions about LeetCode Algo Academy or anything we talked about today, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, share your insights, your struggles, your aha moments. Let's keep the conversation going and learn from each other.
Because in the end, we're all in this crazy world of software development together. Until next time, happy coding, everyone.